I don't know how they bring back Bertuzzi and also have Taylor Hall. I don't know how that works. I don't, again, like you look at how bad that cap situation is. Wing right now is a possession of depth, and I think you don't have a ton going down the middle. At least, your number one center, Patrice Bergeron, doesn't come back, and you kind of have to take from the area where you have some depth. And as you said, Taylor Hall's in his 30s now. Bertuzzi plays a little bit more of a Bruins style of hockey. He's younger, has had some injury issues in the past. He had like 3 this year. I know he had a hand and a wrist injury this past season. So I like Bertuzzi. I want to kind of get into the whole idea of signing him because I really liked what he brought this postseason. I really liked it. But there's that pessimistic part of me that's like, if they sign him I'm always weary of free agents, to a long-term deal, 5 years, let's say 6.1 million, let's say. It feels like that's his value. I know there have been projections that have been way less that I was kind of shocked by. But I don't know. There's a part of me that's worried. I can't really back it up aside from the injuries, that he would be almost like another Matt Bolesky or a guy who kind of raises some red flags, doesn't produce like he did in the postseason. I mean, you remember Charlie Coyle in the 2019 playoffs was an incredible, producer and did a lot of good things. And he's done those things since, just really not to the level that I think the Bruins have wanted from him.
CLNS Media's Bruins coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.
Is there a chance? I mean, there is obviously a chance, but how high are the chances that a guy like Bertuzzi doesn't live up to what kind of the expectations he set during this playoff run?
Yeah, it's always possible, but I think for me, the fact that we have already seen him do it in the playoffs as a Bruin helps alleviate some of those concerns. The fact that he has a 30-goal, 60-point season on his resume on a team that wasn't very good, like that shows me, okay, like he doesn't have to be, he doesn't have to have a David Pastrnak on his line to put up points. He did it in Detroit with, Dylan Larkin, who's really good, but not, putting up 100 points a year. So I trust Bertuzzi a little bit more. There are questions about his defense, and we saw that pop up in the playoffs. Like he loses too many board battles coming out of his own zone or mishandles pucks coming up the boards. So they would have to work on that. And I think you get him, into a better defensive system with better defensive coaching, and he can still learn some of that. And, he's never going to win a Selke, but like David Pastrnak, for instance, is a player who has become passable defensively. Like,
Jake DeBrusk is another.
Yeah, exactly. Jake DeBrusk has definitely gotten better defensively. So those things can still improve. But yeah, to me, what I like about the idea of bringing Bertuzzi back is, one, he scored the kind of goals that the Bruins had struggled to score in the playoffs in recent years, which is dirty goals, in tight, inside ice, net front, getting to those areas and finishing when he gets there. That's something that the Bruins have missed too often. So I like that. And then also the age and what the contract would look like, I think lines up, say Bergeron does retire. And to me, you're looking at, no matter how you slice it, there's some sort of reset for the Bruins. Like they're not going to go into next season as Stanley Cup favorites if Bergeron retires. So yeah, you can still be a playoff team, but like realistically, you're not going in thinking it's totally win now or bust. Like, no, you're starting to plan a little bit longer term versus just the short term. And Bertuzzi, if you're signing him to a 5-6 year deal, now bridges those bridge years or whatever you want to call them, gap years. And he's still with you on the other side. And he's still in his early 30s at that point, pretty much in his prime. So that kind of lines up better time-wise than, say Taylor Hall, who I like what he's brought to the Bruins, and he had a good postseason as well, but he's already in his 30s. He has 2 years left. And it's like, okay, well, what if those 2 years are, all right, we're squeaking into the playoffs, but not really ready to go on deep runs yet. There's a little bit of a retool happening. And it's like, okay, well then how valuable is Taylor Hall for those 2 years? Like the fact that you would have Tyler Bertuzzi on the other side of that is appealing to me. So I would definitely be doing what the Bruins are doing, according to Elliot Friedman, which is exploring ways to keep him, because I do think it would benefit them more in terms of like bigger picture, longer term plans than just keeping the guys that they already have. And even if it means trading away a Hall or Allmark, I'm fine with that, because again, those guys only have 2 years left and might not be here when the Bruins are truly ready to contend again.
Exactly. And I mean, you even look at next season, like, right, let's say they trade Hall and Bertuzzi they re-sign Bertuzzi, right? The top six, if nothing else changes, which I think there will be change, but if nothing else does, you got Marchand. I put an X in the middle as the center one because we don't know what that is yet. DeBrusque, Bertuzzi, Zacha, Pasternak. Let's just say the lines stay similar. You're competing. You're not winning, you're not a Stanley Cup favorite there, but you are competing. You're still in the mix. The other thing on Hall, and this is why I want them to go the Bertuzzi route and try to deal a guy like Hall. They don't have many assets on this roster that are getting them picks or prospects. And I know that shouldn't be the main focus, but it should be a focus because, I was all in on Sweeney going all in this past season. Like, put the chips to the middle of the table, go for it. But now you got to deal with the consequences of that, which is a product of it, right? You got no first or second round pick this year, no first or second round pick next year. You have to get back into the first or second round either this year or next year. And, I think a guy like Hall could potentially help you do that. Omar could potentially help you do that. If you decide to go that route, right? If you want to deal Hall and free up cap relief, teams know you're over the barrel in terms of cap stuff. But I also think you could probably get some picks back. I mean, do you think Hall gets a first, or it's more second, third round type play?
Yeah, this is what's so
hard
fascinating
to
to me. Like, my gut instinct is it might be a second. Like, you might be fortunate to take that, because like on the surface, it's like, yeah, of course Taylor Hall should still be worth a second round pick. But as I mentioned earlier, like 2 years left at $6 million a year for a winger in his 30s. Really, that market, you're looking at contenders. You're looking at teams that might feel like Taylor Hall helps put them over the top, and are more focused on the short term, the next couple of years, than 4 or 5 years down the road. So you're already taking out a bunch of the league that just isn't interested in that type of player because they're not there in terms of their own building. So now you're like, okay, you're looking at the contenders, but it's a $6 million a year salary, and a lot of contenders like the Bruins have cap issues. So how are they freeing that up? So I know, people have tried to float something like, Taylor Hall going back to Edmonton, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' name pops up for the Bruins because he's a center. And it's like, I mean, maybe, but that's obviously like a massive blockbuster type deal. And Edmonton can't do it without giving up someone like a Nugent-Hopkins. Like, they couldn't just give the Bruins a first round pick for him, because then they have all their own salary cap headaches. So there's a lot that goes into it. And the fact that, that there probably isn't a contender out there who can just squeeze in $6 million makes me think, they might not get a first for him. But I still think, right situation, you can maybe find a second or a B level prospect, maybe not quite like a blue chip A level guy, but he should still have some value. It's just a matter of how many teams are really going to be able to be in the market for him.
CLNS Media's Bruins coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.